that is everything. I prepared a number of things to say when she was finished with her tale, but I can't manage to put any of them into words. I almost hate myself for thinking it would be so easy, for letting myself hope I could simply pull her back to her old self, accept whatever had happened to her, take her hand in mine, and that would solve everything. The truth is so much worse than I imagined, so much more harrowing. She was subjected not only to her own terrible fate, but every single one of those house's tragedies. The tales she told me are things she witnessed with her own eyes. How can I possibly blame her for forgetting me, for forgetting herself, after so many hundreds of years? No, I should be. Why? Why didn't you come for me? Why couldn't I have returned before she was so far gone? Why? Why did you show up now? Giselle. Because you opened the door to my memories, I now remember everything. But I didn't want to remember. I didn't want to be reminded of all those empty years, of the people who passed on, leaving me behind. Of you, who refused to show up no matter how much I begged. I'm not the Giselle you knew anymore. I may have my memories, but I cannot go back to that time. My hands are stained with blood, my soul worn thin. The girl who would laugh at the simplest things, who would tell silly jokes and wasn't afraid to speak her mind, doesn't exist anymore. That Giselle is dead. How can you say I am the same girl? How can you say I feel the same way I did? How can you be sure that even now, I still love you? Can you deny the possibility that I no longer yearn for you, but the white-haired girl? Can you deny the possibility that my love for you has transformed into hate? She brings her hands up toward my throat, and I make no attempt to move out of her way. When her fingers brush against my skin, they feel as frigid as death itself, far colder than anything I have felt from her thus far. If she were to wrap her hands around my neck, she wouldn't even have to squeeze to stop me from breathing. This is the fork in our road. One word will decide everything. I don't have much time. I have to say something before the cold robs me of my voice. Of course, I'll deny it. While I was floating in the darkness, I heard a voice. Regretfully, it took me far too long to realize that it was your voice crying for help, calling for me. You may have lost hold of your old self, but somewhere deep down you kept calling for me, which is how I found my way here. I refuse to believe that isn't real. I refuse to stomp on a love that survived for hundreds of years. By all means, hate me. If that's how you feel, that's how you feel. I don't care if you spit bile at me for the rest of eternity. I will not let go of this hand, because you asked me not to. I could kill you, right now. If that's what you want, then go right ahead. But I'll fight you with all I've got. Giselle, I've missed you too much to lose you again. I don't care if it makes you despise me. I don't care if you think I'm being inconsiderate. I want to save you. But I'm not the Giselle you once knew. I'm an abomination. My mind and body are twisted beyond recognition. I'm a disgusting monster. The woman you fell in love with does not exist anymore. So just forget about me. You are the one who should be saved, set free from me. You look the same to me. Your manner of speaking, your temperament, your physical appearance may all have changed, but you are still the same Giselle I love. You should never have done anything for a foolish girl like me. You gave your life to save mine, and I hated you for that. I never once considered how you felt with those knights pointing their blades at you, or what drove you to allow me to live. I should have, but I didn't. I was the one who trusted the witch, and yet I complained when you never showed up. I unfairly resented you for it. I'm a horribly self-centered person. You would be so much better off with someone pure and unburdened with all this nasty suspicion and doubt and animosity. You would be so much happier with someone like her. Giselle, you've been paying attention, haven't you? You were there for all the tales I told you, for everything that has happened up to this moment. So you should know just how loathsome a woman I am. Too weak to even keep herself together. No, Giselle, I'm nothing compared to her. Giselle! She, you haven't changed one bit. You still get louder and louder the more you lose your temper. Why do you feel the need to compare yourself to her? Because she is a better match for you. Giselle, I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. I'm so sorry for keeping you waiting. And I want you to believe me when I say that I dearly missed you. From the bottom of my heart, I wanted you back, and that has not changed. Believe me. I love you. I missed you so much too. She leaps into my arms, and she's just as cold as ever. Her warmth, deprived body feels like the embodiment of all my mistakes. I wrap my arms around her, and I'm immediately filled with unparalleled relief. Even as she sobs into my chest, her body cold as ice. And then the darkness parts. We are, once more, at the top of the observation tower. It's still shrouded in a miasma of shadows, but we're back in the mansion now. We've emerged from the darkness in her heart. Michael? Yes? I'm sorry. For what? I never should have erased you from my memories. Yours are the memories I needed to hold on to tightest. I was so glad to hear you say you still loved me, even after learning the truth about me. Thank you so much. I'm incredibly relieved. As I watched, it felt like you were slipping further and further away from me, Giselle. It terrified me. Maybe it makes me a coward, or pitiful, but I was truly afraid of you coming to hate me. I would never hate you, Michael. Ever. Thank you. We must leave this place. What? It would not be wise for us to remain here long. The air is still thick with darkness. But The front door won't open. And even if we could get out from somewhere, what would happen to us? We finally found each other again, after so long. I want to share a quiet, modest life with you, like before. What if that all disappears when we step outside? After all, we are... She doesn't finish, but I feel like I know what she was going to say. We're different now. She's stepped far outside the bounds of mortality, and the same could be said of me. I am, the man known as Michael is, long since dead. The mansion itself does not follow the rules of nature either. As beings no longer in possession of their proper forms, stepping outside these walls could very well mean the end of us. I can't say what might lay in store, but we must return. Even though, by staying here, we could be together for all time, I don't imagine that would be a very happy life. There is no sun here, no chirping birds, no trees or breeze to rustle the leaves. If we stay here, then nothingness will eat us. We finally retained our old selves. We need to take action now, while we can. What if I say I want to stay here? Then I'll drag you out. It's almost like we've switched places. Back then, it was you who wanted to stay. It's also kind of funny hearing you speak favourably of the outside, and especially the sun. The words, "that's all thanks to you," are on my lips, but before I can say them, I find myself hypnotised by her smile. That smile has picked me up so many times. She claims it's her only redeeming feature, but if she didn't have it, my life would have gone in a very different direction. I'm grateful to have gotten that back too. Say, we're in the middle of a very, touching reunion, wouldn't you say? I suppose so, yes. And wouldn't you say there's a certain way these things usually go? Huh? Are you really going to make me say it? I was, hoping you might perhaps kiss me. What? What? Oh, seriously? What? Where did all that boldness from a second ago go? What happened to all that momentum you were building? Yeah, about that. I think that might be more appropriate. Later. Later? How much later? After we find an exit. We're, in a hurry. You're just making excuses because you don't want to. I swear that's not it. Giselle, let's save that for when things aren't as crazy. I can't relax and enjoy it right now. What are you, 12? Oh, hush. All right, fine. But you'd better keep your word, got it? But promise. Let's go then. Let's find our way out of the mansion. There, our frozen time should begin moving again. That's hopefully where our future waits. It will be. No, we'll make it so. Yes, we will. If we leave the mansion, it should release our souls as well, and in doing so should finally provide her deliverance. So, I mustn't hesitate. To end all of this for both of us, we must start again. This is where we... What? Darkness. It's a blackness purer than any I've experienced in this house. Not a trace of light anywhere to be found. Why did I ever think the house would let us go so easily? Why did I ever think our time in the darkness was over? Michael! The darkness surges through the open door like a wave, flooding the observation tower, like ivy growing wildly to cover every last inch of every surface, consuming, defiling, eroding. Our fingers slip apart, and concentrated rancor rains down upon us. Ah, how hideous a world this is. No! Michael! Please! Please! Don't let go of my hand! Giselle! Michael! I said I would never let go of her again. I said I would get her out of this place. I swore I would. But as hard as I try to stretch, I can't reach her hand. Help! Michael! I can't move! I can't move my body! I went out of my way to give you a beautiful tragedy. So why must you so stubbornly exist on this ugliness? The more you struggle, my dears, the thicker and more palpable your filthiness becomes. And it's sickening. Wouldn't you agree? She's always spat her bile with a song-like cadence. Singing like a little girl, chirping like a morning bird, she celebrates misery, and she watches for the worst possible moment to let out a cackle. Morgana! I swear, you two are hopeless. I pity you. I give you my deepest condolences. Let go. Let me go. Don't take me away from him. Giselle. The darkness seeping into her grew thicker by the moment, and its black tendrils weren't just wrapped around her, but me as well. Stop this, Morgana. Let her go. Wow. Nothing more original. I need a devoted puppet to protect this mansion for me, so I can't give her up, not even at your request. Besides, why should I give back something you threw away? Something you abandoned, again and again. What are you talking about? You still haven't figured it out, my dear? Or are you just feigning ignorance for your own convenience? You always did like to withhold anything that might prove disadvantageous. Michael! Giselle, give me your hand. Reach harder. Reach as hard as you can. Grab my hand. I can't do it. It's like I'm tied up. I can't move at all. She's right there. She waited so many hundreds of years for me, finally managing to reclaim herself, and she's right there. So why can't my hand go any further? Why can't I reach her wrist, her hand, or even a strand of her flowing hair? Why can't I get her back again? Michael! Her voice, growing fainter, more distant. The darkness shrouds her, taking her away from me. Her arms, her fingers, the hands she led me with, her smiling face. Her once glowing grin, and her now more modest smile. The witch's darkness is stealing every last bit of her. Stop! Please, don't do this! Take me instead of her! Why? Why does it have to be her? Why her? Morgana! Why? Because your work is done, my dear. By all accounts, as the one who resurrected me, you should have become my guide as well. But you let a silly woman emotionally manipulate you, and you gave up on cursing others. And then you threw away your life, deluded into thinking you were protecting her. Morgana! You already gave up the position once. Don't think you can just walk up and ask for it back. Set Giselle free. I'll do anything you ask. If you need a puppet, I'll be your puppet. If you want more from me, it's yours for the taking. But I can't leave her to remain in this cursed house any longer. You certainly have let your obsession for this girl take its toll on you. I much preferred the old, pessimistic, cynical Michael. I wasn't until I met Giselle that I truly became human. She made me into what I'm supposed to be. I can't lose her again. Is that so? Well, you'll come to a harsh realization soon enough that everything you saw in her was just a facade. It was not. All right then. If you want her back so badly, you can have her. But in exchange, I want you to entertain me. Will you endure maddening agony for me? Will you know pain enough to make you howl? Will you face despair again and again and again? If you need her that badly, you can bear anything, can't you? If that is what you want from me, if that will allow her to see the sun once more. Brilliant! Wait, Morgana! Morgana! As you wish, foolish boy. I was looking for a way to keep busy anyway. So, I'll use you to kill some time. Find your way to me, my dear. Find your way to me without going mad or succumbing to despair. And do hurry, or she might lose her mind again. Those memories you forced her to relive, those hundreds of years she spent locked away in her shell, all that fear that ate away at her. It's a bit much to have to reflect on with a clear mind, wouldn't you say? That's why I need to be there for her. Why I have to get her out of here. That's my obligation to her. You're the one who let go of her hand, though. You can put a broken cup back together, but the slightest tap in the wrong place will shatter it again. Morgana! The witch's cackling fades into the distance. My outstretched hand is completely enveloped in the shadows. I can't even make out the faintest outline of it. And I can't tell if I'm sinking, floating, being pushed along some invisible stream, or falling with incredible speed. My eyes are open, but they can detect nothing. The complete lack of sound is almost painful. Nothing, anything, anywhere. Void. My consciousness begins to drift. Vague remnants of the feeling of her hand in mine are my only link to reality. My one and only landmark. Giselle. I must get her back. She waited, enduring for hundreds, no, almost 1,000 years, and now it's my turn to act. I have to hold that resolve, hold it firm, so that I never forget her again, so that I never lose myself again. Even if I'm consumed by the darkness, you must never back down. You must never look away. You must never lose her. The House in Fata Morgana. The story behind the story. Hey, Master. Hello? Is anyone in there? Master? Oh, good. Welcome back. What's gotten into you? I thought you had fallen asleep with your eyes open. I'm not accustomed to people needing my attention. Or, I suppose, talking face to face at all. This is my mansion? Giselle's right in front of me, smiling like she always did. Smiling for me. You're not hurt, Giselle? You have been alone for 10 years, but now I'm living here with you. So, what do you say we do a little practice conversation? Practice conversation? What exactly do you think I am? Yeah. No offense intended. I just thought it'd be nice if you had more back and forth skills. So in short, you're saying I'm such a poor conversationalist I need training? Hey, don't get snippy. That's not what I meant. I'm saying we don't talk enough, and I want to talk to you more. It's fun. No, this is an old memory, from when Giselle first returned to the mansion, and we were just starting our new life together, when we were still feeling around in the dark. What exactly would you like to talk about then? Each other, of course. I have nothing to say. Now. Let's not be rash. It can be anything. Things you like, things you don't like. Start with something small, insignificant. Does that serve any purpose? It does, yes. The more you know about someone, the closer you feel to them, and the better friends you can become. Is that how it works? Now that that's out of the way, let me ask something. Ask me something. Ask me anything, and I'll gladly answer. Her eyes lit up like a child's. Is she really so eager to converse with me? I don't believe it. What's the matter? I'm ready for anything. Very well, I'll ask whatever comes to mind. Go for it. You haven't told me your age. My age? Take a guess. I thought she said she would tell me anything. 18? I look like I'm still in my teens? You talk like a young lady. Really? Because I've been trying to act older. So, how old are you? 20. I was born as summer was starting, so I'll be 21 soon. I'd like you to sing a song with me on my birthday. Not a chance. Oh, come on. Have a heart. Please. You just wait. I'll make you sing. Now it's your turn. How old are you, Master? As I recall, I should be 27 this year. Oh wow, you're much older than I expected. What did you expect? You are very mellow, like I would expect of an older man, but every once in a while you give the impression of a teenage boy. For what it's worth, I mean that in a good way. For what it's worth. Tell me about your family. You want to know about my family? We were pretty normal, I think. Not much interesting about us. We had been able to get citizenship in the capital, but we weren't super rich or anything. In fact, it was because we were having money troubles that I ended up here. It's not easy for 3 women to make it on their own. You didn't have a father or any brothers? No. We lost my father to a plague when I was young, and since then it's been me, my mother, and my older sister. But they're both bright, lively people. Our family motto is, a smile can make anything better. Maybe that explains why she can still smile now, even after nearly succumbing to despair. I've always kind of wanted some brothers, though. Men are more suited to physical labor, yes. Not quite what I was going for. I feel like, I don't know, the kinds of things you would ask a brother and a sister for help with are different. I'm not sure how to explain it, but a guy with broad shoulders and muscular arms is someone you can look up to, for instance. Someone who looks like they'd always keep you safe. She's never been betrayed by family, it would seem. She can't even imagine family hurting her. She has no idea that those closest to you, those who are supposed to care about you more than anything, can be your greatest enemies. That blood is a bond heavier than any chain. Master? I believe your brothers are still on your side. It's been so long. I don't know if they are. I don't know what they think about me anymore. I'm sure they're still your allies. You want to believe it too, don't you? You want to believe they're not your enemies. Let's believe in them together then. Anything you want to believe, you should. It's such a better way to look at the world than the other way around. You have to be positive, or one day you'll crack. Always remember to have faith so that doesn't happen. I don't understand. She's honest about her emotions in a way I simply cannot be. She is the exact opposite for me in that regard. And yet, she can still reel me. She can still read me. I don't get it. How can she understand me like that? It's like she can read my mind. If only I could just tell her everything. Make it all another page in our mindless chatter. Get everything weighing down on me off my chest. Is something the matter? You're cruel. What? I said you're cruel. I'm sorry. Ignore me. In preparation for the day you can finally go back home, you're going to have to stop being such a picky eater. Where did that come from? Think about how terrible it would be if, when that day finally came, you went back sickly and weak and emaciated. You wouldn't be able to enjoy yourself. You're still all right, Master. You're doing okay. So let's try to keep you healthy. Tell me your preferences. Wow, how very forward of you. Huh? My taste in men is the last thing I expected you to ask about, Master. I don't recall specifying people. Now, don't fret the details. It's only natural to be curious, so let's make it about that. And that's the last thing I wanted to talk about. Alright then. Tell me about your first crush, Master. And I have to start? I never had one. What? No, I'm not buying it. You were living at home until 10 years ago, weren't you? Surely there was someone who caught your eye. There was not. Without missing a beat. Oh, fine, then I'll go. My first crush was the son of a blacksmith. You missed the part where you ask, what kind of guy was he? This is such a pain. Since you asked, he was a huge, muscular fellow. He was so tall he would always hit his head on the doorway whenever he came to our shop to trade. Oh, nice beefy guys are great, huh? They make your heart get all fluttery and tight. Are you trying to imply I don't have a chance? Though, I think that was more admiration than love. You know, the way a group of girls will get together and fawn over a popular, good-looking guy. It was like that. So you're saying the buff bastard was popular? Very much so. I wonder what love feels like. I never got the chance to find out before ending up like this. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to get all dark on you. Say whatever's on your mind. I don't deserve your consideration. It was my family that put you through that, after all. Perhaps it is my reticence that causes her to watch her step around me. Damn. I need to come up with something to say. When I was 14... Oh? You asked about my first crush. Ha! I knew you had one. So, tell me, what was she like? She was the daughter of a noble family. Her name was Amy, and she was a year older than me. Ah, love between nobility. A world I can only even imagine. It never went anywhere. What? You didn't try to woo her? You didn't shower her in presents? Were you, by chance, a late bloomer, Master? She was my brother's fiancée. Oh, I see. So it was a love that could never be realized. That's sad. Not really. Besides, I don't feel anything for her anymore, and what I felt then was just impulses. I guess that makes us both inexperienced. I suppose it does. Okay. I think that's enough of that. So it is. Do you like being here? Of course, I love it here. Being with you, being able to talk to you like this. See, that I don't understand. What? Why not? I find it difficult to believe there exists any reason speaking with me would be anything but unpleasant. You're so negative. Oh, hush. Say that, for example, instead of me, there was someone not so pessimistic here. Would you rather be talking to them? I really do enjoy this, truly. I will admit, my time down in that village was, for the most part, delightful. But, how should I put this? I started realizing, yeah, I'm kind of forcing myself to fit that image, and I'm trying to convince myself that that's okay. But somehow, when I'm here, there is none of that. I wonder why that is. I certainly wouldn't know. I suppose you wouldn't. Ah, I know. Maybe I think of you as a kid now. Come again? I love talking to kids. What? Hey now, don't give me that look. What I'm trying to say is, you're very sincere, Master. You're not going to smile and then stab me in the back when I turn the other way. I can relax around you, which is nice. I see. You just blushed, didn't you? You're blushing, you adorable little thing. It's all right. You're allowed to fall for me. Is there any window in particular you'd like to be thrown out of? No fun at all. See what I was saying, Master? With just a short conversation, I know you better than I did before, and you me. That's fine and well, but what do I do with that knowledge? Huh? You don't do anything with it. It's fun learning things you didn't know before. That's all there is to it. And what happens when there's nothing left to learn? That's a day I don't think will ever come. People are always changing, growing, so there is no upper limit to what you can know about them. There's always something new to discover. Maybe we'll be here for many more years, or maybe you'll be able to go home sooner than you expect. But either way, I hope we can keep getting to know each other until then. And of course, if you're open to it, it doesn't have to end there. We can continue getting to know each other for years to come. Hey now, what are you looking away for? What do you think? Because you keep throwing me off balance. A few moments ago, I was doing everything in my power to avoid her. Yet now that smile of hers seems so oddly enchanting. I don't understand. I will do my best so that we can make this work. I'm glad to hear it. Giselle, I was too awkward back then to even compliment you on your smile, to put my feelings into words. I was too cynical to accept what you said at face value, which I know caused you plenty of grief. I'm not much better now than I was then, but I will tell you this: when I next see you, I want more than anything to let you know how much I adore your smile, and how much I don't want to lose you or it ever again. You must never reclaim your old selves. Become my loyal servants, always at my side, and curse them with me, my dears. Eternal suffering on all their souls. My consciousness, wavering like a ship at sea, is slowly drawn back to the surface. With each new breath, feeling gradually returns to my fingers. I can hear the pattering of rain from somewhere, and the sound of a crackling fire. Creak, 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 sploot, sploot. It takes a moment for me to realize I'm in the very same spot where I first awoke. I don't know how I got here, but I'm sitting in a rocking chair hunched forward. My head feels like someone filled it with rocks, and I'm having difficulty focusing. My joints are creaking, and I feel like I'm going to vomit. A suffocating odor hangs over the room. What is this? Giselle. Giselle! Everything comes back to me all at once. That's right. I watched Morgana kidnap her. I watched the witch drag her into the darkness, unable to reach her hand. Where are you, Morgana? I know you're there, cackling as you look down on me. Say something, witch! I will find you, and I will take her back. What on earth? There's a pool of liquid at my feet, rising just short of my ankles. It's sticky and uncomfortably warm. Every step I take makes splat, splat noises. This is blood. The mansion has taken on a very different face from when Giselle was leading me through its halls. Blood of unknown origin not only covers the floor, but also streams down the walls and drips from the ceiling. I'm speechless as I behold the dreadful scene. Every breath I take tastes and smells of rust. Ugh. It's all so unreal, beyond my comprehension. All I can do is stare, aghast, feeling like I might pass out. Giselle, are you seeing this? This same twisted nightmare as me? An image of her floating alone in a vast sea of blood flashes through my mind. That vision kicks me into motion. I promise I will come for you. So please, just hang in there for a little longer. I begin walking, or more accurately, dragging my heavy feet forward. The constant splashing of blood against my ankles grates at my already taut nerves. Morgana told me to find my way to her, and I can only think of one place she would be. She and Giselle must be there. The stained glass window is splattered with blood too. It creates trails like streams of tears running down the Archangel's face. I give the window a brief glance before making my way to the door leading to the observation tower. However, why won't it open? There shouldn't be a lock. So why? Lustrous black chains seal the metal door. I can recall no such obstruction present during either my life or my time hereafter. What on earth is going on in this house? No, that's not important right now. What matters is making it through this door. Damn it! I pull and I push, but the chains won't give an inch. They feel sturdy enough that I probably couldn't cut through them either. There has to be some way. I consider giving up here and scouring the rest of the house, but I'm convinced the tower is my best chance. The fact that it's sealed now, when it hadn't been before, feels like a challenge more than a deterrent. I trace a length of chain in my hand, and at the end of it I find a peculiar-looking lock, into which the ends of several chains have been fed. There are 3 keyholes. Morgana fashioned a custom lock just for this. I need to find 3 keys to open the door then. But I have no idea where to begin my search. I lived here for more than 10 years, and yet it feels like I've stepped into a strange land. No, it's not the same house. Searching blindly is only going to waste time, and the longer I take, the more danger she's in. I met someone before who had a key. It was before I had reclaimed myself, when I was exploring the mansion alone. Think, Michael, who was it? The painting. Like everything else in the house, the painting is covered in blood. That it depicts a serene, rural landscape only makes the contrast that much grimmer. I remember talking to this painting, assuming I wasn't hallucinating. I have a question for you. Are you awake? Please, wake up. Can you hear my voice? Please, say something. You reside here in the house like the witch, don't you? You've been here with her all this time, haven't you? Then you must know how to get into the observation tower. About the 3 keys that I need to open the lock. I need to get into that tower. Please, tell me where I can find the keys. Say something, damn it! Answer my question! Oh, is someone there? What's the matter? I feel kind of strange. Did the witch do the thing to me? Please get a hold of yourself. Everything's all red. I can't stand it. I don't remember using that color. I reach my hand up to try and wipe as much of the blood off the canvas as possible, but I can't even smear it with my sleeve, let alone get it off. You're wasting your time. But it is the thought that counts. Anyway, you had a question for me? Go on. I'm listening. I guess the painting isn't on the witch's side then. The door to the observation tower has been locked. I need to gather 3 keys, I think. That's my assumption, since the lock has 3 keyholes. Do you know of any such keys? And if so, could you tell me where they might be? Keys? Keys? Keys. Please stay with me. You're the only one I can ask for help. Keys. I'm guessing that this is probably in some way, probably in the same way, connected to her past. Her past? You know, the events the witch is always cursing about. What happened between her and those the 3 men? What happened between them? The keys are probably with the 3 of them. The 3 shadows. You must have seen them. 3 men. Shadows. Find them. And you'll probably find the keys too. But watch yourself. They aren't likely to trust you easily. The depth of their sins grows greater the further you go. Visit them in order. The first one probably won't be a problem. So tell me something. You're Michael, aren't you? What? I've wanted to apologize to you for so long. Wait. What do you mean? Do you know me? Did you? What did you want to apologize for? Tell me, please. Could you be... But why? How? When everything else is finished, I'm going to need to visit this painting again. But now, I have other things to do. The painting gave me a hint about where I could find the keys. I don't know anything about this past Morgana has with the 3 men. I never asked her about herself after all. So maybe I'm going to end up having to do more than simply take Giselle back. Has our involvement with the witch caused us to be swept up into her twisted maelstrom of fate? Regardless, I need to get to work. The painting said to visit them in order. I assume he was referring to the order I entered the 3 doors. Go to the rose garden. I make my way to the rose garden. The corridor leading there is a mess, and the wooden door is rotting away. I can smell the flowers on the other side. Everything is different from when I was alive, from when Giselle planted and raised that single rose. A scene from the past spreads out before me. The field of once proudly flourishing roses is now withered and grey. Knowing how beautiful it had once been only makes it that much more dispiriting. A bitter breeze brushes past me. Solitude hangs over the garden like a thick fog eating away at me. This isn't what I wanted. Someone, get me out of here. Oh God, tell me I'm not the bad one here. A young man's shadow stands off to the side, muttering listlessly to himself. I recognize this voice. Do you have a key? The boy and I have never met, but I feel like I know him quite well, like we have been acquainted for many years. I know how polite and mild-mannered he is. I know how kind and how vulnerable, how human his heart is. However, very little of that boy seems to remain. This isn't what I wanted. Oh God, please answer me. Someone get me out of here. Tell me that I'm not the bad one here. Answer me! Mel Rhodes! I know that's you. Huh? As soon as I say the shadow's name, it turns to face me. I still can't make out much detail, but he seems slightly less tenuous now. Who are you? How do you know my name? My name? My name is Michael. I once lived here in this mansion. Michelle. I know that name. I know it very well. But something's not right. You look different from the Michelle I remember. I am not the Michelle you know. Our names simply sound the same. Oh, that makes sense. She would never come see me. I have a question for you. Do you have the key to the observation tower? I do. Would you please give it to me? I need to get into the tower. And what do you need there? There's someone there I need to find. That's all. It may not sound like much to you, but it means a great deal to me. You're not one of her prisoners, then? No. I came here of my own will. To find this person? Exactly. Then maybe you can help me. Help you how? Set me free. Convince her to release me from this place. I'm begging you. The anguish emanating from the boy's shadow is so thick it causes me to recoil. There's a thread of dark desperation in his voice. Has he been imprisoned here for hundreds of years, like Giselle? Promise me. You'll get me out of here. Am I even equipped to judge whether that would be a good decision or not? All I know of him is his time in the mansion during the era of roses. I know nothing else of his life. I don't even know if I would be capable of keeping such a promise. Do I have the strength to save another other than her? Do you? Do you absolutely need the key? You won't agree to help me without it, will you? What? I dropped it. Over there. Huh? The boy is pointing to a thick bramble of roses. Despite the flowers themselves being wilted, the thorns are still sharp. It was an accident, I swear. But I didn't want to scratch up my arm, so I left it there. It's not my fault there are so many thorns. I really want to hit this boy. Why couldn't you have just said so? Because I thought if I didn't have the key that you wouldn't help me. There is only so much I can do, regardless of whether you have the key. I cannot promise you anything, nor can I be the judge of you. I see. I do not have enough information to make such a decision. Cheap promises and superficial kindness will only serve to destroy the both of us. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to retrieve the key. What? You'll never get it out of those thorns. I don't care if it's at the bottom of the ocean. I will have that key. You're wasting your time. I approach the bramble, reaching out for it with my right hand. From behind me, I can sense the boy watching. First, I attempt to spread the tangled, thorn-ridden stems so I can put my arm in without injuring myself. But they seem to be made of iron rather than plant, and my efforts prove mostly fruitless. The only opening is barely large enough to fit an arm in, and resembles the toothy mouth of a beast. I look around the garden. I can't find anything that looks remotely useful. I guess my only option is reaching in. That's not going to stop me. I lean down, inserting my right arm into the thorny cavern. Immediately they begin ripping at my sleeve and gashing at my flesh. Blood spills down my arm. I'm long since dead, no longer human, but the pain is still agonizing, still very much real. Giselle, she doesn't bleed. She doesn't feel pain. Am I not the same as her then? That doesn't matter right now. Focus on getting the damn key. Streams of crimson spread through the steel-like tangle, gnawing at my arm like a ravenous animal. Where the hell is the key? The thorny stems are twisted and layered so thick I can't see inside at all. As I dig around blindly, I start losing feeling in my arm, as an endless deluge of pain. Hey, cut it out! You're going to lose your arm. I will not stop until I have the key. Don't ask me for help. I wasn't even considering it. I collect what remains of my gradually fading sensation and focus it into my fingers, praying even one of them will brush against the key. Damn it! But as much as I search, as much as I dig, I find nothing so much as resembling a key. Which means it must be deeper than I can reach my arm. Even so, I cannot give up. Hey, please, be quiet right now. I need to focus. I'm sorry. I do have the key, actually. You what? I'm so sorry. It didn't look like you were willing to help, even if I gave it to you, so... Plus, she told me not to give it to anyone for any reason. Hold still, so I can beat you. I didn't mean you any ill will. You most certainly did. I'll give you the key, so please have mercy." Trembling in fear, the boy's shadow sticks out a hand holding a key. The arm I used to dig through the thorns is so bloody and gashed I can barely look at it. But it does still function, and so I take the key from him with my right hand. Why couldn't you use your other hand? That's gross. That's the idea. You're kind of a jerk, you know. That's a laugh coming from you. Do you have any idea how much that hurt? I know. I'm sorry, really. But hey, you're alive, so no big deal, right? But wait, can you actually say either of us are alive? I don't even know anymore. I do appreciate you giving me the key though, seeing as it seemed to be rather important to you too. Hey, is this person you want to get back really worth going through all this for? She is. She's the only person who ever loved me, and she's waiting for me. I see. You know, I had someone that meant a lot to me too. My sister. Which one? Which? The one with flaxen hair, like me. If you happen to see her, do something nice for her, please. That, I would say, is your responsibility. Yeah, you're right. But I'll keep it in mind. Thanks. In the tale I witnessed, the boy pushed his sister away. For an understandable reason, admittedly. But now, he seems to bear no grudge for her. Did something else happen between them? Even if it did, I don't have the time to ask about it. I'll be on my way. Alright, take care. There are 2 more keys. Watch out though. They're not the most friendly people, and they'll probably be even more enraged locked up like this. I appreciate the warning. If only someone like you had shown up sooner and taken the keys from us. Goodbye. After bidding me farewell, the boy's phantom dissipates into the shadows of the rose garden. I wonder if he's gone back to mindlessly muttering his regrets. I should get going. To the cellar. I descended the stairs, opening the cellar door. The first time I visited this room, the smell of blood from within was nearly suffocating. Now, the entire house reeks of it, and I've started to go numb to the odour. There's no one here. Am I in the wrong place? I begin exploring the cellar, hoping to find the key hidden away or abandoned somewhere. As I reach my hand out to investigate one area, a shadow leaps out of the thick darkness. It's so swift I have no time to react. My body freezes in place. A shadow stands before me, holding the tip of a blade mere inches from my face. A key. You have a key. I do, yes. Cold sweat trickles down my back. My voice is shaking and there's no hiding it. The shade appears to be glaring at me, though I cannot make its face. After a few seconds, it withdraws its blade. Let me see it. The boy's key! Did he give it to you? In the rose garden, yes. Are you 2 acquaintances? How could that be, though? You are from a completely different era and country. Who are you? No, never mind. Who you are is irrelevant to me. Are you human now? If you're speaking of my nature, then no is the only answer I can give you. You didn't kill me though. If you wanted to, you could easily skewer me where I stand. If that's what you want, I'd be happy to oblige. What did you come here for? For your key? I came to ask if you would give it to me. You mean to open that door? I need to get into the tower, yes. I see. Take it. The man's shadow tosses the key at my feet. I'm not quite sure what to think. I didn't expect him to give it up so readily. What? Take it! I won't stab you in the back while you're bending over. I thought you were supposed to hold on to this at all costs. I no longer have any reason to guard that key. In the past, I might have severed your head from your shoulders the moment you mentioned it, though. What point in the past? That's a question I wish I knew the answer to. Hey, do you know why I'm here? Where this place is? When it is? Why can't I get out of here? What's happening to me? Tell me! I have no idea what's going on. Not a single goddamn idea. Neither do I. Get out. Take the key and get out of here. Get out! I can't bring myself to say anything to the enraged shadow, so I follow his command, picking up the key and departing the cellar. I thought I was dead for a second. This makes two, though. What could have happened between these people? The painting mentioned a past with them, and Morgana spoke of the wicked men she cursed. Does that mean they did something awful enough to earn Morgana's spite? Right now, though, I must push onward. If I'm not mistaken, the final key should be in that room. The room with the billiards table? What is billiards, anyway? I should get moving. Once I have this key, I can get into the observation tower. I'm almost certain Morgana is waiting for me there, with Giselle. So, I gather up my resolve and hurry to the last room, not wanting to take even a second longer than necessary to get her back. I can hardly believe my eyes when I step into the den. In the middle of the room is a large rectangular table. Several balls roll across its surface, and perched on one corner, looking down at the floor, is her. Giselle. Giselle! The question of why she's here never crosses my mind. All I feel is elation to see her once more. There's no room for anything else in my head. I run over to her, put my hand on her shoulder. Thank goodness you're all right. And turn her toward me. What? Huh? But... Giselle? Giselle! I shake her, causing her head to droop lifelessly. There's not a trace of light in her unmoving eyes. Why? Giselle, why? Say something. Giselle, say something, please. This can't be. You can't be. You can't be. My mind goes blank. I can't catch my breath. The world is hazy. Why? Why is Giselle? Why did I have to find her like this? Why? I swore I would do anything. I swore I would never lose you again. No. This can't be. A thought crosses my dazed, despair-wrought mind. It's probably nothing more than vain hope, but... Not a drop of blood spilled from my breast. That's right. She doesn't bleed. So this This can't be her. This isn't her. Or maybe Morgana has the power to alter Giselle's very nature, kill her with a flick of a wrist. No, I don't even want to think about it. There's no hope to be found down that path. All I can do is pray, beg for her to still be alive, or if alive isn't the right word, herself. My prayers bring me back to reality, which is when I realize there's something hard pressed against the back of my head. I hear a harsh, metallic clink. What? A piercing bang rips through the air as I drop to the hard floor. My ears are ringing painfully. Through the cloud of smoke and confusion, I see a man's silhouette. Missed. It takes several moments for me to recognize the object in his hand as a gun. Not only because it's draped in shadow, but because I've never seen one with my own eyes. Had I not witnessed what they were capable of through the stories, I would not have understood how terrifying they were. Not a problem, though. I'll finish you with the next one. Now, you hold still, boy. Start running like a rat, and I can't guarantee you a painless death. Wait, hold on a second. What are you trying to kill me for? Because you make too much goddamn noise, that's why. Don't tell me. You're the one who... What? I turn my gaze toward the large table. Giselle isn't there. It must have been an illusion after all. The realization sends a wave of relief through me. I still have a gun in my face, though. Curious man you are. Does the table warrant your attention more than me? I have a request. Could you give me the key in your possession? That's all I need, and then I'll leave and stop making a racket. I'm not sure you understand your predicament, boy. Because if you think you're in any position to be asking favours, you're dumber than you look. First off, I don't even know what key you're talking about. I don't believe that. The other two had keys. You telling me they gave you their keys? It sounds like they really do know each other. See for yourself. I believe you should recognize these. Are you collecting them to enter the tower? Are you going to see Morgana? There seems to be a hint of tension in the man's voice. Though I can't see his face, I can see the waves forming within him. I brace myself for either rejection or hot lead, but the apparition gives me neither. Take me with you. What? You have the other two keys, don't you? Then you can open the door. Bring me to the witch. Wait, slow down. What are you planning to do when you see her? What do you think? She has to. She has to. He's gone. She has to what? What was he trying to say? On the floor where the shade stood is a new key. Curious, though, I am about his last words. This makes 3. I have all the keys now. Are you trying to rile me up, Morgana? Are you enjoying yourself up there, showing me these phantoms and watching me squirm? Just you wait. I'm on my way. I give the room a brief once-over before making my way back to the chapel. The keys fit perfectly in the openings on the lock, and when I insert the last one, it clicks open, the chain sealing the door falling to the floor. They're waiting beyond this door, at the top of the stairs. I start pondering what I can even do in the face-off against Morgana, which sends a nervous shudder down my spine. I'm not going to back down regardless, but she is a witch, and I'm a mere human. Formerly human. I'm not a master swordsman, nor do I wield a gun. I have nothing at all with which to fight her. I still have to confront the witch, though, no matter what. As laughably reckless, as foolish as I may be, I have no other option. I place my hand on the door, preparing to climb the tower where I once spent my last breath, Giselle locked away safely in the chamber at the top. The tower where I first met the witch. No hesitation. The sound of blood streaming down the stairs echoes off the stone walls. Although I have begun growing numb to the house's otherworldly ornamentation, the sight of a seemingly endless river of blood flowing down the spiral staircase sends a chill through me. Every step I climb makes a splat noise. When I reach a window, I look out to see a churning, reddish black fog. Now this brings me back. You climbing these stairs alone, just like old times. Morgana, I waited so long for someone like you to show up. Someone with enough to spare to resurrect me. Give her back. But now, I don't see it in you. I don't feel one bit of that intense hopelessness anymore. Give her back. And here I had thought we were cut from the same cloth. Morgana! Yes, I'll give her back, if you can make it to me without losing yourself. I will not give up. It doesn't matter what you do. Looking up, I can't see how far the stairs extend. It's just a gaping blackness, so I have no way of knowing for sure whether I'm getting any closer. Around and around, around and around, around and around. Beneath me, the blood river traces the same path in reverse. I start to wonder if the staircase even does end. If I'm not just eternally retracting my own steps, but I continue climbing regardless. It's all I can do, put one foot in front of the other and hope I make it to the top. Morgana. What is this place? What did you do to it?
What is it? Why? It's the mansion you lived in for a decade, of course.
You look at this and tell me it's the same house? What's with the blood everywhere? And the three shadows?
Now, my dear. No need to raise your voice. And you're being impolite, one question at a time.
Answer me.
What is this place? That's immaterial. Even if I were to give you an answer you found satisfying, what would that knowledge do for you? Your objective is to reach the top of these stairs and rescue Giselle. Nothing more, nothing less. Isn't that right? Or, by chance, have you taken an interest in me, despite never once asking me about myself before?
My gut tells me that without knowing what this place is, without even the briefest glimpse at its nature, I won't be able to safely get her back. Without knowing what I'm up against, I don't stand a chance. Please tell me about this mansion, Morgana. About yourself. What are you, Morgana?
A witch?
No, that's not what I'm asking. Why do you have the powers you do? What are you?
Yes, I get it.
Humans feel the need to attach names to things and phenomena they don't understand. I understand that feeling very well, which is why I'm sure you'll rather be disappointed when I reveal the truth. What do you mean?
What I mean is, I'm an ordinary human.
That's not possible. You expect me to believe a human created this illusion?
Then are you saying I'm a magician or a wizard like you might see in a fairy tale?
I would believe that over you being human.
Think back then, would you? Recall our time together. Did I ever once use magic? Did I control fire or wind? Did I create illusions? No, I did none of that. Because I could not. To you, when you were alive, I suppose you could say, I was naught but a simple ghost. A rather mischievous, but otherwise powerless spirit. And I was nothing more to those three men either. The witch, Morgana, was never anything but a wretched phantom, haunting this old house.
But then, how do you explain this?
Michael, my dear, we're not the same beings we once were. We're different than we were in the realm of light, the era of the living. You've figured that much out, though, haven't you? That you're already dead.
Yes, I know. I know I couldn't possibly be alive.
Yet still you view this world through the lens of the living. You make no effort to see it as the land of the dead. Tell me, why do you think that the realms of the living and dead are the same?
Though the worlds behind each door were so vibrant, the mansion itself never had any colour. They were the memories of the past, of the land of the living, of times forever lost to us.
Our lives have already come to an end, my dear. Every last soul within these walls is dead. This is the world that lies beyond the end. It is my world. This is the afterlife. Why get caught up in the minutiae? None of us has a future, so what reason is there for you to desperately obsess over taking Giselle back? Just like you, she's long since dead. She's a walking corpse.
There's nothing I didn't already know, but hearing her say it is like a kick to the gut. Dead or alive, she still lives on within this house, and my spirit found its way back too. Why then should I not wish for her to have a future? No matter what form it may take, no matter if my choices erase her from this world entirely, having seen what lies beyond the door in her heart, what happened in all those hundreds of years, I could never let her remain here with you, trapped in this world bereft of light, drifting aimlessly for all eternity.
So determined, you feel the need to raise your voice. But you're not going to budge on that point, I see.
I ask you this again, Morgana. Please tell me about yourself. How did you become a witch? How did you end up attached to this house? I want to hear your story.
You honestly want to know about me?
I do now, yes.
But not for me. For her, right? Don't be shy now. It's the truth, isn't it? Besides, if you did say it was for me, not her, I might die of laughter. As you wish. You have seen many tales of people's lives since arriving here, and now you shall see mine. Though I ask you this, will you writhe in despair with me? Will you endure maddening agony for me? Will you know pain enough to make you howl? Will you face despair again and again and again?
As I said before, if that is what you want from me.
Let me tell you something though, my dear. It will not be as easy to watch as you imagine. Now that you've reclaimed yourself, you will be able to feel all my pain as if it were your own, to resonate with it.
Resonate with it?
You no longer have your little guardian with you either.
My guardian? She was always protecting me.
You'll have a wonderful time, I'm sure. It's a tale that could have only taken place in that era of miracles and spirituality. Wondrous and weird, senseless and stupid, hopelessly tragic. Will you watch it with me?
As soon as the final words leave her mouth, I'm engulfed in darkness, not even given a moment to brace myself. Ah! The tower's stairs crumble beneath me. My feet have nowhere to go as I'm being battered by the roaring blood river. My consciousness melds with another. I carry the child of God. That is where it all began. The words of one foolish woman determined the course of my entire life. Before I was even born, my fate was decided. Did her claim come from faith? Was it her way of escaping reality? Did she do it for money or fame? I don't know. I have been visited by an angel of the Lord. The village where she lived had suffered from years of poor harvest. It had been months since the last rain, and all the villagers prayed desperately to be blessed with succor. I am with child, though I have known no man. So proclaimed the pregnant woman in the midst of the drought. And on the day of my birth, the very moment I let out my first cry, a heavy rain fell upon the village. The storm quenched the parched earth, nourishing the crops and saving the village. The villagers were astounded, for they had thought the drought would never end. As plump drops of rain poured down upon the village, they gathered around newborn me in exultation. Ah, she is the child of God. Perhaps there would be more wonder in claiming I had magical powers. Perhaps it would make a better story if I were to say there were higher forces involved. But all these years later, here's what I truly think. It was nothing more than a fluke, an improbable stroke of luck, an unbelievably fortunate accident for my mother and the village, and an indescribably unfortunate accident for myself. I am with child, though I have known no man. As if that's even possible. Maybe she had fooled around with a man who had gone and abandoned her, and she spouted those lies to convince herself it had never happened. None of the village men made a claim to be my father. Perhaps he was someone else's husband, and as such he couldn't reveal himself, as adultery is a sin in the eyes of God. The girl they were praising as the child of God was indeed naught more than the ordinary daughter of a wretched woman. At the time, though, I thought differently. I believed my mother's words, convinced I was a saint, and it gave me a sense of duty, of purpose, rather than superiority. As the daughter of God, I believed it was my responsibility to help anyone in need. So, every day I prayed. I asked my Father what I could do, what I was meant to do. Not everyone is equally good, however. There will always be someone who lends their ear to the devil's whispers. One man claimed I was the daughter of a charlatan. He shouted for all to hear, "If you really are the child of God, then perform a miracle for us." Could he have been any more unreasonable? Miracles are neither magic nor parlour tricks. They are realised through the power of faith. A lowly villager has no place demanding God prove his own divinity. It is the height of arrogance. But the man refused to heed my words, so, having no other choice, I contemplated what I could do to show him I was indeed a saint. And blood was the spark of my inspiration. Michael, the time when I had lived and the time when you lived were not so different. Our views and beliefs about the world are very much the same, so you should understand that in our time, blood was seen as unclean. It was a dreadful thing, ridden with diseases, which is why we drained the blood from animals and purified the flesh before consuming it. But being a saint, my blood would have been different. Like the blood of the saints who came before me, mine would be blessed. I believed it would be able to cleanse people's impurities. For my demonstration, I chose an elderly woman afflicted with a terrible disease. She was on her deathbed and no one thought she would live for longer than another day or two. The woman was overjoyed when I came to visit her. Sincerely believing me to be a holy servant of the Lord, she gathered all the strength she could muster to climb from her bed and kiss my feet. I felt an intensely deep love for this woman. Placing my hands upon her cheeks, I said with all the kindness in my heart, "My beloved sister, partake of my blood." The woman agreed without a glimpse of hesitation, and so I pricked the tip of my finger with a knife and let the blood drip into her mouth. Within 3 days, her health had improved enough for her to get out of bed unassisted. Seeing that no one in the village doubted my powers any longer, in fact, the man who had accused me of being the daughter of a charlatan was subsequently punished for his sins. He received much deserved retribution for challenging the daughter of God, for mocking her. But of course, being a saint, I forgave the man. He, in turn, repented and changed his ways, worshipping me as the true child of God. Now, I'll be honest with you, I was ecstatic, utterly elated. I felt like I was on top of the world and I revelled in it. The villagers showered me with adulation. They revered me, the daughter of God. Anyone who didn't was punished. And on top of that, my blood could cause miracles. Tell me, do you look down on me for feeling the way I did? The actual child of God would never let herself be consumed by such base emotions, would she? But if you would give me a chance, I would like to explain myself. I was but a young girl at the time, and to a child, her mother is the world. Anything she says is the absolute truth. So when my mother's claims so happened to coincide with a lucky miracle, my young mind was set in stone. I was a saint. My blood could heal the sick, and nothing would convince me otherwise. After all, I was but a girl of 6 years old. It is not my place to decide whether my blood truly had miraculous powers or not. If you think it did, then it did, and if you think it was all happenstance, then so it was. Miracles are brought about by faith. So the elderly woman who was healed was done so by the power of her own belief. Baseless hope and desire can at times make the otherwise impossible reality. You understand just how major a role religion played in our time, don't you, Michael? Especially as someone whose life was taken from him in the name of God. And you understand how powerful word of mouth can be as well, don't you? It didn't take long for a word of the miracle-performing child of God to spread. Travellers from faraway lands came to our village, all in search of aid. Driven by a mixture of elation and duty, I gave my blessings unto every pilgrim who sought them. I gave them my blood, yes. My young hands were perpetually covered in wounds. Running out of skin on my fingers, I cut the back of my hands, my palms, my wrists. Before long they had turned into swollen, carved up black and red horrors, and so I kept them wrapped in cloth at all times. The only time I uncovered them was to give blood to those who sought it. My lacerated hands were in no uncertain terms gruesome and unsightly, but the believers who came to see me all wept at my selfless sacrifice. And so I came to cherish those wounds. There were some for whom no miracle took place, but whenever that would happen, the villagers would come out and say, "The daughter of God is not to blame, you simply lack sufficient faith." Thus, such incidents had no negative effect on my reputation as a saint. For 3 years I continued doling out blessings. One day, I was offering a prayer. My mother let slip her discontent. "Why must you hand out miracles for nothing? Why must you give strangers grace? We should be getting compensated. We deserve remuneration. If we charged just a little bit for each blessing, we could be living so much more comfortably." I was dumbfounded. How could the mother of a saint say such things? Helping people was my divine calling, and she expected payment? I nearly wept hearing my mother preoccupied with such worldly desires. So I explained to her how important this work was. I taught her that we were not to covet material wealth, that we were to dedicate our lives to the service of our fellow man. "You're right, my dear saint," she said, understanding, and I believed her. I fell asleep that night convinced she truly understood, and that there would be no more problems. But the next day, I was sold off. Men I had never seen before carried me by the arms and tossed me into a carriage. Confused and panicked, I stuck my head out searching for my mother. Off in the shadow of the house, I saw her with a strange man, accepting a bag of coins. The carriage rocked back and forth as it rolled along a dirt road. Shaking and bouncing within it, I struggled with overwhelming grief and despair. It was perhaps the first time in my life I had felt such a powerful emotion. I didn't know what I felt so much despair over, though. Obviously, it was over my present predicament, but I wasn't sure what about it hurt the most. Was it that I had been pawned off like a slave? Was it that my mother, the mother of a saint, had been blinded by money? Was it that the villagers had watched in silence as a disciple of the Lord was thrown into a carriage? Or was it that I, daughter of God, lamented my misfortune like a mortal? I decided it was a trial. My Father, the Lord God, was testing my worthiness of being his daughter, so I choked back my urge to cry and sat there in silent contemplation. For almost 3 weeks was I rocked around in the carriage. The coachman treated me well enough, but I'm certain it was only because he didn't want his precious cargo dying before he could deliver it. He did not, by any means, think of me, the child of God. The 3rd week the carriage arrived at a city. It was much larger than the village I had grown up in, with many, many more people crowding the streets. Something about them felt different, too. They all spoke in a tongue foreign to me, which is when I realized I was far, far away from home. I was delivered to the lavishly decorated mansion of the region's lord. Brightly coloured flowers bloomed wildly in the garden as guests laughed and ate extravagant meals. And in addition to them, there were probably 4 times as many slaves moving about the grounds. Getting a range of looks from everyone we passed, from smartly dressed men to scrawny, emaciated servants, I was led to the Lord's chambers. The Lord was surrounded by beautiful women. Perhaps they were slaves, or perhaps prostitutes. I couldn't tell. Among them were some girls hardly older than me. They all wore thin swaths of clothes, barely covering themselves at all. The Lord looked me up and down, and with a laugh he said, "Welcome, daughter of God. You'll be performing miracles for me now." Miracles are not something to be performed for one single person's benefit, I replied, shocked and furious he had just said something so utterly blasphemous. In response he said, "I bought you. You are my property. You have no right to an opinion." But I would not have any of it. I entreated him to give up his indulgent lifestyle and devote himself to the service of the Lord. But the more I pleaded, the deeper the creases on his face grew. Thinking back on it now, it was hardly surprising. A 9-year-old girl was scolding the most powerful man in the region. I believed it was my duty, and that I was only doing what was right, but he surely saw it as incredible arrogance. So the Lord forced his will upon me. He bound my hands and feet and cut me without my permission, filling a goblet with my blood and passing it around to his guests. A saint's blood and good fortune to all. That was when I realized the Lord was only interested in the approval of others. He revelled in their envy as he pranced about showing off his curious new toy, me. He didn't need any miracles. Neither he nor any of his guests were afflicted with disease or misfortune. They were all richly blessed. Every time he threw a banquet, he drained me of my blood. It became nearly impossible to find a spot on either of my arms that wasn't a swollen reddish-black gash. And soon, my arms weren't providing enough blood for him. Then the cutting spread to my legs. I lived in a haze of half-consciousness. Honestly, I'm amazed it didn't kill me. Though perhaps the Lord was simply taking care not to take more than my body could spare. Watching the wealthy partygoers laugh and sip my blood through bleary eyes, another wave of despair came over me. My miracles, my blood, were not meant to be an appetizer at a feast. They were meant for the sick and the poor. But despite my wishes, the Lord persisted to squeeze me dry day in and day out for his own enjoyment. For a while, I was convinced it was all God's test, that it was part of his plan for me, his daughter. that if I could make it through this trial, I would be allowed to go back to helping people. That man would celebrate my success, envy me, worship me. That sinners would face punishment. That divine retribution would be delivered unto all who had wronged me, a saint. With each passing day, my spirit grew more twisted. Would anyone have believed that scarred and bloodied girl tied up on the floor in the banquet hall was a saint? Unlikely. There was no charitable gathering, but an unholy sabbat. Perhaps it was caused by my corrupted spirit. Perhaps it was my heart's way of crying for help. Or perhaps it was the devil giving me my witch's mark. But no matter what the cause, during one of the bloody banquets, I underwent a transformation. I was half conscious as usual when one of the guests pointed at me and shouted something. His face went pale as if he were afraid, which I found quite curious. The Lord then approached me, grabbing me by the hair and lifting my head. He yelled something, but I was too far gone to be able to make out what he was saying. Suddenly, I found myself released from my bonds. But my body had grown so weak from being tied up for so long, I didn't have the strength to hold myself up, and so I collapsed to the floor. I was still trying to figure out what was happening, when the Lord drew a sword, raising it high above his head. His words in that moment reached me with perfect clarity. "You're a damned witch wearing a saint's skin." A witch? Why was he calling me a witch? I was the holy daughter of God. I had certainly never made a pact with the devil. What could have given him that idea? What was in store for me now? Had God performed some kind of miracle for him? Dozens of thoughts and questions floated through my mind as death hung over me. I couldn't comprehend anything, and so I didn't feel any fear or anger at my impending death. I was simply curious. What had happened to me? But before I had the chance to find that answer, the Lord swung his blade. Without warning, without any time to prepare, the darkness drains away, and a second later I crash into the stairs, hard. Right at my ear, I hear the hiss of the river of blood. The world fades in and out of view, giving way to a very real image of the past I never lived. I can practically feel the fire in the eyes of that mad blood banquet's guests. My vision distorts. I can't regain my focus. Whose blood is this streaming down the stairs? Is it hers? Is it mine? Who am I? A saint? A witch? Is what I'm seeing through a lens of clarity or madness? Wait, no. I am not her. I am Michael, no one else. It hurts, doesn't it? It's hard to breathe. Your chest is on fire. Your vision is blurry. It's dark. It's lonely. It's scary. It's frustrating. It's disheartening. It's exasperating, isn't it? What you're feeling is exactly the pain I felt. I reach my hand out in a plea for help, which is when I see something I can hardly believe. Both of my arms are covered in gashes, blood flowing from them without end. The raw flesh beneath my skin has been exposed to the open air. Ah! All I can bring myself to do is scream. That pain, her horrible past, is doing everything in its power to break me. That 9-year-old girl's sickening experiences are twisting and constricting and crushing me. Why is this happening to you? Are you really that slow, my dear? You're empathizing with my pain. You're just that kind-hearted, Michael. Ugh. You said you wouldn't give up, didn't you? That you would make your way to me. Then surely this won't be enough to do you in. Of course it won't. Mustering up every last bit of strength I can, I begin crawling up the stairs. The red river beats against my open wounds, stinging painfully. The simple act of lifting an arm or a leg is almost unbearably agonizing. The blood dripping from my lacerated arms mixes with the blood already soaking the tower. So, this is the pain Morgana suffered. Do you despise everyone, Morgana? Did your resentment at your mother's betrayal, at the people who came seeking your blood, at the Lord who took your life turn into a hatred for all mankind?
Your perception of me is still incorrect, Michael. My grudge is only against a select few. Think about it, my dear. Of the thousands, millions, billions of people living on this planet, my world is comprised of but a minuscule fraction of that. Hatred for all mankind? No. What I feel is not nearly so nebulous. Although, if I had died still believing I was a saint, maybe I wouldn't have such a well-defined mission.
Are you saying the Lord didn't kill you?
Oh my! Did you actually think that was the end of my tale? Despite all your big talk, you're afraid of having to suffer through any more of that, aren't you? But you're the one who said who wouldn't give in. So, go on. Know my pain, without losing your mind.
Once again, my surroundings crumble. I have no say. I have no chance to object before I am dragged back to that repulsive banquet. I reach out, stretching my hand as far as it will reach, but all I can grab is darkness. My bloody body sinks back into the abyss. The pain becomes more than just a memory, eroding away at my consciousness. You're a damned witch wearing a saint's skin. Maybe if I had died then, I wouldn't have become the witch you know now. But that's all conjecture. Theorizing about what could have happened is an exercise in futility. But no, I did not die that day. Brought together by constant mistreatment, the Lord's slaves chose that moment to start their revolt. When he swung down his blade, someone bumped into him, and it was knocked off course. I didn't have the strength to get to my feet, so I simply watched the chaos unfold before my hazy eyes. It never even occurred to me that I should try to escape. At some point during the riot, a young man, one of the slaves, grabbed me by my bloody limp arm and led me out of the Lord's manor. The young man brought me to a slum, a place where the people banded together in their hardship, barely scraping together enough to eat every day, let alone pay the taxes demanded of them. By the time we had arrived at a small brothel located a ways into the slum, the fog was starting to clear from my mind. I knew where we were, and feeling the gazes of those scantily clothed women, I trembled. In a sense, that was possibly the most frightened I had ever been in my life, despite everything else I had been through. The idea that I had fallen so far I would have to become a prostitute scared me to death. After all, I was a saint, and saints were supposed to retain their purity. Spreading my legs for any man who gave me enough coins would shatter my very identity. As all that was going through my mind, I probably shouted no in protest, because the slave gave me an exasperated look and told me he hadn't brought me here to become a prostitute. He said he knew someone here, someone I could trust, and that she would give me a room. I had trouble believing him, though. I couldn't trust the word of a prostitute, someone who valued money more than her own body. It was all a trap, I was sure. One day they would tell me I had to work. Nothing he said would convince me otherwise. Apparently, sensing my mistrust, the slave gave me an apologetic frown and handed me a mirror, saying, even if I did, you couldn't get any work looking like that. I could not believe what I saw. That couldn't be my face. It had to be an illusion. There was no way. That was not the face of a saint. It couldn't be. It wasn't real. It wasn't possible. Patches of skin had fallen off my face, exposing the raw, red flesh beneath. It looked quite similar to what had been done to my arms and legs, except my face had never been cut before. Looking at myself in the mirror, even I doubted my own sainthood. The thing in my reflection was a hellish abomination.
It was the twisted face of a witch. And although I was shocked by what I saw, at the same time it answered several lingering questions. It explained why the Lord and his guests had panicked at the sight of me, and it also explained why he had said I was a witch wearing a saint's skin. Over the course of the dozens of banquets I had participated in, my face must have mutated, twisted into this ugly, sickening, monstrous thing. The sight of what I had become sapped the last bit of willpower from me, not because I was particularly fond of my face, or thought myself especially beautiful, but because it crushed me to see everything saintly about me crumble away. Test from God or otherwise, I didn't have the strength left to attempt to overcome it. Deciding I would rather be dead than struggle any longer, I begged the slave to kill me. Taking one's own life was a sin. If I did that, I would not be able to return to my father's side, and I wanted to ask him why I had been put through such tribulation. But the young man refused. He said, completely missing my intention, that if I persevered, good fortune would eventually find me. He said that if I lived on, I would eventually have a chance to get my payback. I had no such worldly concerns though, but if no one would take my life, I had no choice but to live. I despised life at the brothel. The men who came to buy their services were disgusting buffoons, the kinds of people who would think they could deceive God, and the women fawning over them were just as repulsive. That said, I had nowhere else to go, which meant I was forced to suffer that sickening place. By the time a year or so had passed, my feelings about it had changed. The women of the brothel took good care of me, treating me like a sister. At first, it was just irritating. I was a saint. How could a saint have prostitutes for sisters? But over time, I got to know them better, grew to appreciate their circumstances and hardships. Despite barely having enough money to keep food on the table, whenever they had a little to spare, they would use it to purchase medicine, ointments to apply to my arms, legs, and face. And as a result of their generosity, my arms and legs started looking almost human. But nothing had any effect on my face. Occasionally, the slave would drop in to check on me. The other men thought me ghastly and wouldn't get anywhere near me, but he was different. And every time he visited, he would say, "One day I'll show you the world." And to tell you the truth, I was beginning to grow attached to it all. My time in the brothel was probably, all things considered, one of the brighter chapters of my life. There was neither saint nor witch. There I was neither saint nor witch, but an ordinary human girl. For the first time I felt like my life had meaning beyond my assumed divine purpose. I was even beginning to feel kind of happy, and with each passing day my intractable worldview was gaining a little flexibility. Perhaps I could perform miracles, but that didn't necessarily mean I had to be the daughter of a saint or a god. Maybe I was just a regular person who happened to possess some unusual abilities. Ridiculous, isn't it? Despite coming to accept my humanity, I refused to let go of my miraculous powers. They were the last thing protecting what I thought of as myself. But to me, at that time, it felt like a very dramatic change of heart. 3 years after the revolt at the Lord's mansion, I had my 12th birthday, for which they threw me a little dinner party. The women all pitched in to bake me treats, and the young slave man was there too. I was happy. I thought that if life could continue on like this, I was fine with not going back to being a saint. But for some reason, happiness always seems to slip away as soon as you've got your hands around it. No one sincerely wants to lose it. So why must they? I certainly didn't mind not being miserable. Let me tell you what happened that night. On the night of my birthday celebration, bandits attacked the brothel. Now, bandits were hardly a rarity at the time, so everyone was always on the lookout. And we never went out at night. They wouldn't stop at robbing you either. They were armoured with blades and would frequently kill their targets if necessary. But, cautious as we were helpless against a direct raid. The brothel fell into a panic, screams echoing in the night.
The customers were carved up and left for dead. The women were bound and stowed away to be sold. My peaceful world shattered in an instant. And the next thing I knew, I was some slave trader's merchandise. I don't know what became of the prostitutes who cared for me or the slave who brought me to them. I assumed the woman was sold and the young man slaughtered. But regardless, I found myself being rocked around in the back of a carriage once more. The carriage was packed so tightly you could barely see the floor, and it smelled like death. Sweat, urine, feces, every foul odour imaginable, compressed into a tiny space. There were both men and women there, nearly all of them muttering or groaning or weeping. Everyone was young, ripe to be put to work. And it didn't take me long to realise what fate awaited these people and me. And when I did, I just sat there in silence. And then, for the first time, I cried. I was experiencing, I believe, a very human emotion. I was sad, hurt that I had been taken away from a place where I was happy. From the women at the brothel and that young man, it crushed me. And I no longer did wonder why such a thing was happening to the holy daughter of God. Something about my tears must have seemed strange to him, because one man saw me and said, "Why are you crying?" He was a curious man. To start, he looked very different from anyone else. The colour of his skin, the length of his nose, the shape of his eyes. Everything about him was new and unusual. Hesitantly, I replied, "I'm sad because I didn't get the chance to show my gratitude to people very dear to me." The man fell silent, looking as though he was deep in thought. I had no idea why he had asked me that, but something about him made me uncomfortable, so I couldn't bring myself to ask. Several hours later, the man suddenly stood up. The guards had no patience for anyone stepping out of line, and they didn't look like they would hesitate to kill us either. So unsurprisingly, one at the back of the carriage drew his sword and pointed it at the man. What was surprising, though, was what happened next. The man, his hands shackled like the rest of us, leapt for the guard, slamming his fists into his face and stealing his sword. The entire carriage was in shock. The guards were too stunned to effectively react, so they were quickly cut down. And because the one-man uprising had taken place between cities, there was no one the slave traders could ask for help before they were slaughtered. In the blink of an eye, it was all over, and there was nothing human about what I had witnessed. If I had to describe it, I would say it was as though a wild beast had attacked. The man ruffled through the slave trader's clothes until he found the keys, which he brought to me, ordering I unshackle him, and so I did as he commanded. Once they had enough time to process what had happened, the other slaves applauded. Their wretched souls had been saved, and for a moment I believed so too. When the man's hands were free, he rolled his shoulders a couple of times, made sure everything was in place, and then he began his massacre. Screams of agony filled the carriage as he ran his sword through helpless men and women packed inside. Blood and guts were splattered against every surface, and those who tried to escape did not get far before being mercilessly skewered. It was like a scene out of a nightmare. I was frozen in place, not out of fear, but because my mind had shut down. I couldn't make sense of what was happening, so my mind rejected it, and with my brain having given up, my body was no more than a lifeless puppet. In short order, all the slaves were dead, and I was sitting in a pool of blood staring at the man. He pointed his blade at me, and with a little smirk said, "Why didn't you run?" In turn, I asked him, "Why did you kill them?" The smile vanished from his face, and after a few quiet moments of pondering, he replied, "Because I felt like it." "And why haven't you killed me yet?" I asked, to which he gave a curt, "I don't know," then withdrew his blade and wandered off into the distance. And then I was all alone, surrounded by corpses. I glanced down, and half of someone's face was looking back up at me. Wrapped in absolute darkness, warm blood spills onto my cheeks, my hair, my skin. Chunks of human flesh rain down on me. Ugh! Make it stop! Pitter-patter, pitter-patter.
There's no end to the deluge. The smell of death fills the air. Ugh! Ugh! I'm struck with a wave of nausea, so strong I can't hold back the contents of my stomach. But when my mouth opens to vomit, blood pours into it. Ah! 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 Let go of me! Dead bodies grab at my ankles, dragging me down. To where? Hell? Or to the mountain of corpses? Now, do you understand that there was a time, if but briefly, when I was happy, when I felt human emotions? But I wish I never had. If I had remained confined in my daughter of God shell, then I doubt I would have felt so much terror at the sight of death. I can't say anything in response. I can't form words. I feel what she experienced, the massacre she witnessed, the limp flesh piling up around her. Even more than twice her age, it's enough to drive me mad. The fact that a 12-year-old girl had to experience something so unspeakable devastates me. Tell me, my dear, do you pity me? Do you sympathize with me? If you feel bad for me, then you'll remain with me. You'll feel my pain and my despair with me, won't you? The witch's cackle echoes through the pile of bodies. There's not a speck of light, and hideous death lingers everywhere. Helpless to resist, I'm dragged down into a deep, dark ocean, an ocean of blood. Now, on with the story. I was at a complete loss for some time after that. I didn't want to return to the city because I knew there was no one left who would take me in. There was only the Lord who had bound me and drained me of my blood. So I wandered the roads, no destination in mind and nothing to defend myself but the clothes on my back. Frankly, I'm rather surprised I wasn't attacked by bandits. After walking for days without food or water, my mind was hazy and my exhaustion at a peak. In the distance, I saw a lake. So driven by my thirst, I turned my unsteady feet toward the water, not caring that it took me off the main road. And it turned out that was the correct choice, because there was a small cottage beside the lake, smoke rising from the chimney telling me it wasn't abandoned. Out of sheer desperation, I knocked on the door. No one answered. The door wasn't locked, so I slowly, hesitantly pushed it open, and beyond that I found an old woman sitting dead in a chair. The woman was a witch. By trade, that is. It appeared she had had a deep knowledge of medicinal herbs, using it to make an assortment of medicines. In her cabinets were dozens of small glass bottles containing dried, powdered leaves and crushed berries, among other things. On the fire was a cauldron, liquid bubbling inside. The woman looked as though she was deep asleep. Presumably, she had passed away of old age, for there was no sign bandits had been rooting through the cottage, and she had a look of absolute serenity on her face. Looking over the woman's dead body, I didn't cross myself. I envied her. Dragging the woman's body by her feet, I dumped her into the lake. Do you think doing so makes me a bad person? Makes me unsaintly? Well, I didn't have anywhere else to go, and the owner of the cozy cottage was no longer of this world. There was no reason I couldn't fill the home in her stead, was there? I deserved to have somewhere I felt comfortable, after everything I'd been through, didn't I? And so, I took up residence in the old witch's cottage, and remained there until my 16th year. By 16, a terrible cynicism had taken root in my heart. I had no trust for people. I shut them out, building high walls around myself.
After such a tumultuous, bloody childhood, it was all I could do to protect myself, to keep my young spirit from cracking. Nevertheless, travellers would, on occasion, pay the old witch's cottage a visit, seeking her medicines. Whenever someone arrived, I would cautiously crack the door open, telling them they could trade for whatever they wanted with food and never showing my face. One day, a young man showed up at the cottage. "My sister has fallen very ill, and she desperately needs medicine." He was very soft-spoken. There was a distinct kindness in his voice which I thought unusual. Curious. What kind of person could he be? What did he look like? What expressions did he make as he spoke? To satisfy that curiosity, I snuck a peek at him through the crack in the door. He was a handsome young man with flowing flaxen hair, and upon seeing me, he didn't flinch back in disgust. He smiled. According to him, his younger sister had fallen gravely ill, and though they had tried a number of remedies, she was still bedridden. The medicines I gave him too had no effect, but he persisted in his quest, visiting me again and again for new combinations to try. He wanted nothing more than to relieve even the slightest bit of his sister's suffering. And, moved by his dedication to his family, I too wanted to do anything I could to help. For the first time in years, my world encompassed more than my small cottage. When the young man came, he would ask not only for medicine, but to go on walks with me. He volunteered to spend time with me, despite my horrifying appearance. It's not healthy to stay holed up inside all the time. You've got this beautiful lake right here. What do you say we take a little walk around the shoreline?" he said with a smile, taking me by the hand. We spoke as we circled the lakeside. His voice was always soft and pleasant, like a ray of light shining through a crack in the walls. When I was with him, I felt like I could be an actual person, an ordinary girl. He talked about his sister more than anything, and whenever he did, he was at his brightest and most melancholy. The young man had been a member of a noble house, but disputes over who was the rightful heir had forced him and his sister out. Shortly after that, his sister had fallen ill and was now bedridden. "I'll take anything at this point to make her better. I'll even take a miracle if I can get one." That word, muttered beneath his breath, sparked my memory. I was a saint. My blood had healing properties. I had no reason to hesitate. Someone needed my help, and who deserved it more than this kind-hearted young man's sister? So I decided to tell him what I really was, that my blood had miraculous powers, that it had saved people, that the moment I had been born, the drought plaguing my village had come to an end, that I had been known as a saint, the daughter of God. I told him everything, and he believed it all. He led me to his house where a pale, sickly young girl lay in bed. She was a sweet little girl, with the same flaxen hair as her brother, who looked like she would have been quite spirited if not for her ailment. It was touching to see the two siblings sitting there together, quietly holding each other. I would gladly give my blood for the two of them. And so, I made a new cut on my arm, which had healed considerably thanks to the slave and the women of the brothel, and let the girl drink of my blood. Neither of them had any doubts about my sainthood, and because they believed, a miracle occurred. The flaxen-haired girl recovered enough to get out of her bed. I was extremely proud of myself. I felt like, for once, I had actually saved someone's life. The only issue was, she didn't make a complete recovery. For a few days after drinking my blood, she was in good health, but her condition quickly regressed. I was deeply perplexed by this. Her miracle had undoubtedly taken place, but it was only temporary. Now, though, I believe I can explain what happened. Her recovery was nothing more than a placebo effect caused by her faith. But that's something I couldn't have known at the time. We were all three perplexed, and we were all three disheartened. Nevertheless, I was prepared to give her my blood as many times as needed. Whenever her condition worsened, the young man came to request more, and never once did I turn him away. On the contrary, I enthusiastically offered her my services. Over time, though, the hope in his eyes began to fade. He asked me on fewer walks, and he seemed hesitant to look me in the eye. I assumed it was out of discomfort, out of guilt, out of shame about asking for blood. But I don't think his concerns were for me, rather himself and his sister. As I mentioned earlier, blood was considered unclean in our time, and not only was I giving mine away, I was having his sister imbibe it. Looking at it that way, it would hardly be a surprise for him or anyone else to think what I was doing depraved. As time passed, the flaxen-haired young man seemed to grow more and more disturbed by me. That was what I got for opening up. That was what I got for letting this kind, warm light shine in on me. The moment when things went bad, he pulled away. There were times when I thought I shouldn't have done anything in the first place, but regardless, I held fast to my original decision. I would put myself on the line for them. No one else. Just them. Even if he was afraid of me or had no interest in seeing me, I would continue offering her my blood, and I was firm in my resolve. One day, though, I received a new visitor. The young man was still the only one I would show my face to, the only guest I had let into my walls. So as usual, I took the man's request from behind the cottage door. But I could hardly believe my ears when he began speaking. Are you the witch with the miracle blood? First, how did he know my blood had powers? Second, why had he called me a witch and not a saint? Third, why did he sound like the man who had slaughtered the slave carriage? I told the man he had to leave, that I would not be opening the door for any reason. In response, he said, I am in need of your blood. Could you not spare a little? My blood was for the sick and needy. I would never spare a drop for a murderer like him. And I told the man exactly that, demanding he leave. All I could think about was the pile of bodies, the fountain of blood, the man drenched in crimson, wearing a ghastly smirk. I trembled behind the door, fearing he may go on another such rampage. But instead, he gave a simple, as you say, and went on his way. I let out a deep sigh of relief, which is when I realized tears were rolling down both of my cheeks, like an ordinary girl. 3 days later, the flaxen-haired boy showed up at my cottage. I'm sorry for being so distant lately. I want to talk things over. Those 2 sentences were like a light shining from above. I wanted to talk to him too. I wanted to take a walk around the lake and listen to him talk about nothing. I wanted to experience the warmth of his world once more, and I wanted to tell him about the terrible man who had been there a few days earlier, about how scared I had been. I wanted him to tell me it would be all right. I want to talk to you too, I said, opening the door without a second thought. The light of the sun was so bright, all I could make out was his silhouette. I couldn't see the look on his face, or the look in his eyes. A gentle breeze blew past, and my mind froze. How could this be happening? What did it mean? Why? How? What was that man doing standing behind him? Why was he carrying a sword? Why was he coming into my house? And why did he swing it down, severing my arm? I was in a daze. I couldn't make sense of anything. I didn't want to. My left arm fell to the floor before I even knew what was happening, and then my legs gave out. The pain, searing and unbearable, came a few moments later as I was lying in an ever-expanding pool of my own blood. I did something then that I hadn't done before, that I had resisted doing no matter how much blood the Lord had stolen from me. I screamed. It was a hideous, visceral noise, a sound I had never thought a saint could make. The same ear-splitting howl the slaves had made as the man had butchered them. I writhed, I wailed, I wept. I crawled across the floor through my own blood. I begged and I begged and I begged for my life. The man walked over and picked up my severed arm, and then, shockingly, he tossed it to the kind-hearted young man. After which he said, "That's your share, should you last long enough." Share? What did he mean by share? What was he talking about? Why had he given him my arm, and why had he taken it? Why was he talking like they knew each other? Why? Why? I had spared blood for him when he had asked, hadn't I? So why was he doing this? Was cutting my arm off and stealing it easier on his conscience than simply asking? You understand how I felt, don't you? You can put yourself in my shoes, can't you? The young man refused to look me in the eye. Holding my bloody arm in his trembling hands, he fled from the cottage as quickly as his legs would allow. The man then walked over and picked me up. I had neither the strength nor willpower to resist. Holding me in his arms, he began to speak, telling me things I didn't want to know, things I didn't want to hear. But he didn't care. Nothing personal. I just need your blood. Without it, she'll lose her church. Don't take it personally. Tell me, is there anyone in this world who wouldn't feel a bit of spite after being put through such torture? How was I supposed to let that slide? No one's that much of a saint. My trust had been betrayed, and I was supposed to turn the other cheek? A man had barged into my home uninvited and cut off my arm, and I was supposed to smile and take it? Is there anyone, anywhere, who doesn't feel even the slightest bit of hatred ever? Is there anyone in this world who could just laugh and brush off this level of abuse? Tell me, is there? How could I not hold a grudge? How could I not despise them? How could I possibly forgive them? Tell me, please. Tell me, how could I? She needs the money. I needed some way of getting enough money to keep her church running. So the Lord made me an offer. If I brought him the witch with the miracle blood, he would finance a whole new church for her. The Lord? Why him again? Why couldn't he leave me alone? After trying to kill me during one of his blood sabbats, why was he after my blood once more? Had he learned it really did have miraculous powers and decided he wanted me back? You get to be the sacrifice to keep her church from collapsing, to keep her world from collapsing. Sacrifice? Excuse me, what? And what's all this about keeping her church from collapsing? You murdered a carriage full of innocent people, and you're trying to protect a church? You? Are you out of your mind? Churches are where people go to commune with God, to speak with my Father. How dare you soil those sanctified grounds with your filthy hands, you beast! It's insulting, sacrilegious, repulsive. Just what do you think we are? So don't take it personally, witch. I'm not a witch. I'm a saint. I was a saint. My blood exists to do the Lord's work, not to satisfy the avarice of men. Why is this happening to me? The man brought me back to the city, but instead of taking me to the Lord's manor, he brought me to a church on the city outskirts. Though, to be honest, it looked more like an estate than a church. The church also served as a hospital, offering free care to less fortunate children, the poor and the infirm. That was when I learned why he had said they needed money. The owner of the church offered unconditional assistance to anyone who came. Even when food and supplies ran low, they would ration their own in order to keep helping others. As a result, the church was perpetually on the verge of collapse. The church was run by a woman, something exceedingly rare for the time. There were no priests. All management was handled by a single nun who everyone referred to as the saintess. I was the saint. Why was this woman who didn't have the ability to perform miracles being worshipped like she did? Why did the people of the city idolize her? Why were their smiles all directed at her? Why? Was I not in her place? The man carried me to the top of the observation tower. It was there that I had my reunion with the Lord. I was to spill my blood for the people of the city, but also for the Lord's profit. He was not offering free aid, but selling it as medicine. He claimed it was a miracle elixir, telling no one that it was actually my blood. It was mixed with a beautiful red wine, and drinking it would cure you of any ailment. If they knew it was actually the blood of a witch, they would think it unclean. They would fear it. I remained imprisoned for a long, long time. In the beginning, the swordsman guarded me, though before long the flaxen-haired young man showed up as well. Presumably, one severed arm wasn't enough to keep his sister healthy for long. In listening to their conversations, I learned that, to ensure no one else could get in, the observation tower was sealed with 3 locks. The Lord, the swordsman, and the young man each held one of the keys. I was their secret, locked away in the tower for them to drain of blood away from wandering eyes. Time went on, and I grew progressively weaker. I lost the will to eat, and the will to live. My only view from the tower was the clouds through a window high up on the wall. Occasionally, a pigeon would fly in, sometimes a butterfly, and I would glare in envy as it fluttered around, free to come and go as it pleased. And soon it was spring. Every spring the church held a festival to pray for the coming year's harvest and the people's well-being. I could hear the bustle from afar below through the window as everyone rushed to prepare. I heard the flaxen-haired girl's voice who had regained her health drinking my blood. I heard her brother's voice, who had betrayed me. I heard the nun's voice, who played saint in my stead. I heard the barbaric swordsman's voice, who had chopped off my arm. And I heard the Lord's voice, the root of all of my suffering. I heard people praising the saintess, though I, the true saint, was locked in the tower. I heard people thanking the Lord for his generous donations and miracle medicine, though it had all come from me. Propped up on my suffering, they cheered and clinked glasses of my bloody wine. Those merry, peaceful, cheerful, spirited sinners' voices resounded in my tower. And at noon on the day of the festival, the church bell tolled. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and with the 12th chime, I died. As the bell's last pealing faded into silence, the tower door swung open. Standing on the other side of it were the 3 men. They must have wanted to drain a little more from me to use in the feast, but they arrived at the worst possible moment. The flaxen-haired young man was the first to express his consternation. Why? I never wanted her to die. Was she not eating? The Lord gave my corpse a casual glance, instead stone-faced. Seal the tower off. Understood? No one finds out about this. How can you be so calm? Do you understand what you've done? Ha! Pinning the blame on me. How nice it must be to be able to distort reality with panic. The swordsman, who had been silently observing the Lord and the boy conversing, interjected. You're just as guilty as any of us. Not only did they not mourn my death, they argued over whose fault it was. There was no regret, no remorse. The young man muttered absent-mindedly, I never wanted her to die. What did his intentions matter, though? It was his betrayal that had ultimately tethered me to this mansion. But the fact that they didn't grieve my death, and instead squabbled amongst themselves like filthy rats, was the final straw. How could I not despise them? I don't believe I actually had the power to perform miracles when I was alive. It was all faith, the illusion of belief. I was neither a saint nor a witch. The blood wine was only effective because people placed their faith in the other saintess. I was only ever human. But then, in that moment, an actual miracle occurred. My father bestowed upon me his power, or perhaps it was the devil who lent me his strength. I was looking down upon my own dead body, my own wretched self. There was nothing beautiful about the pile of bones I had become. I could almost smell the rotting flesh. That was once a saint? I laughed at the thought. It was absurd, ridiculous, and infuriating. They would pay. Those who had cast me into this hell, who had mocked me, who had done this to me, who had made a witch out of me. Hatred coursed through me, revulsion at everyone on these grounds still smiling. They would know just whose dead shoulders their little party was resting upon. If they wanted so badly to call me a witch, then a witch I would be. I would kill them, every last one of them. Place a curse on their souls. And so I made my wish. Most people might consider it a curse, but to me, it was most certainly a wish. And my father, or maybe the devil, granted that wish. From the garden, there rose a scream. The flaxen-haired young man knew that voice better than anyone. He went deathly pale, darting down the spiral staircase until he reached a window. A young girl was on her knees, vomiting blood in the grass. The young man let out a yelp as he descended the remainder of the staircase. As soon as he reached the garden, he lifted the girl in his arms, but she had already perished. Realizing this, he cried to the heavens, saying the one thing he should have kept to himself. The witch killed her. The blood of the witch killed my sister. That wine you're drinking is no medicine. It's the blood of a witch. You're all drinking witch blood. Crushed by the loss of his only family, the young man picked up a silver fork and plunged it into his own throat, ending his life. Naturally, there was an uproar. Goblets of wine crashed against the earth in rapid succession as the people holding them fell to the ground and vomited or convulsed. The nun was the first target of their outrage. What she had claimed to be medicine had turned out to be blood, an unclean substance, the blood of a witch, no less. A servant of the church, a servant of the Lord, had given her followers blood to drink. And at this, their indignation surged uncontrollably. The people surrounded her, tying her up and throwing her to the ground. As they prepared to inflict righteous justice upon her, the swordsman soared down the stairs and into the garden, plunging his blade into anyone standing near the nun. The cries of agony ringing through the church grounds were ear-splitting. It was no longer a place of God, but hell on earth. Hell built up by the hands of man. Hell painted red with the blood of their brothers. The people armed themselves with anything they could find and went after the man. As much as a beast as he may have been, he stood little chance against such numbers. It is the fate of a beast to be exterminated by those he terrorizes. And once he was gone, the nun had no one left to protect her. She too was consumed by their frenzy. All that remained was an inextinguishable inferno, hysteria and despair, madness and outrage, and no outlet for it. It was a revolt that made the slaves' uprising at the Lord's Manor look like a game. Eventually, their rage found a new target, the Lord. It was only natural, for he was the true villain. He was the one who had given money and the witch's blood to the church. He was the one who had profited off it. And above all, people often resented those who stood above them, particularly in times of unrest. The city resounded with cries for the Lord's head, and he looked down upon it all from the safety of the observation tower. He could do nothing but watch as his domain burned. I can only imagine how painful that must have been. But long before, having seemingly had made his peace, he began descending the spiral staircase. He opened the door at the bottom, revealing himself to his people. But before the door had swung all the way open, before he had had a chance to say his final words, someone ran a blade through his chest. With that, the raging furor mostly settled down, but it was hardly the end of the destruction. Mere days later, a plague befell the city. Dreadful black spots covered the flesh of the infected. They writhed in pain, screaming and vomiting blood. Ghastly howls echoed through the streets, as though the whole city had been possessed. It became a cursed land. In their diseased haze, the people muttered again and again, "We have been cursed by the witch." In less than a week, the entire city was dead. My body was left abandoned at the top of the observation tower, and, as if to seal the curse away, in their final days the people shuttered all the windows, wrapping the house in darkness. It's possible that was no miracle either. You can easily explain what happened to them. Locked away for so long in that dirty tower, maybe I caught some kind of disease, and then, when the people drank my blood, they too were infected. Hardly anything out of the ordinary about it. The first to die, the girl, had already been ill. Her body merely chose the worst possible time to yield to her ailment. That was all that had happened. Indeed, it was nothing more than a fluke, an improbable stroke of luck, an unbelievably unfortunate accident for the city and those 3 men, and an indescribably fortunate accident for myself. But I wish to believe it was a miracle, that even if my blood didn't have healing properties, and even if I wasn't a saint, my wish, my curse, was what caused that uprising. That was my miracle, granted to me by God or the devil. I chose to believe that, and that my miracle took on its true form thereafter. My curse had brought death upon the 3 men, but for whatever reason, my rancor was far from sated. They had died. So what? Death is but a transient agony. It's nothing compared to what I went through. So I made my next wish. I wished for their reconstruction. I wished eternal suffering on their souls. I wished to trap them in a never-ending cycle of pain and hatred. That was my wish for the flaxen-haired young man. He treasured his dear sister, and he desired a quiet life, so I wished for him to have just that. And I wished for his dearly beloved sister to love him more than anything in the world, for his world to be destroyed by love gone too far. This was my wish for the beast-like man. He was conscious of his tendency for violence, and he yearned to be more human, so I had his inner beast toned up just a little. I saw to it that he would never be human, so he would never have the peace he so desired. My wish for the Lord was more straightforward. He seemed to have great affection for wealth and authority, so I ensured those were the only things he could ever have. Who needs love or friendship when you could be drowning in power? Once he had lost everything, his solitude would be his only companion. Wishes can come true, as long as you always hold fast. Never stop wishing. Never surrender. They can come true. Eternal suffering on all their souls, an endless cycle of reconstruction and unavoidable tragedy. Tell me, my dear, do you sympathize with me? Will you curse them with me? Will you take my hand and revile them with me? This time, when my body crashes into the tower's stairs, I'm unable to make a noise. The obstruction is less mental and more physical. The excruciating pain. It's so intense I can't even eke out a scream. My vision is distorted, my mind thick with fog. I feel like I'll fall into a bottomless pit if I loosen my grip on my consciousness even slightly. Through the haze, I see my own severed arm, reflected in a pool of blood. I see my face, large chunks of flesh peeled off.
Look at You trying to crawl up those stairs like a worm. How pathetic. It's like I'm looking at my old self.
I can barely form a coherent thought. I can't lament her inhuman fate, can't mourn for her, or be shocked by the revelation about the 3 men and her history with them. Pain. It fills every corner of my mind, every nook and cranny of my body.
You've figured it out by now, haven't you, my dear? You'll never make it to me. It's not possible. But it's not your fault. It's not because you're weak. There's simply no one who can bear this pain. You're allowed to give up, to rest. There's nothing wrong with that. The pain, the crushing weight, it's miserable, isn't it? But all you have to do is turn back, and it'll all go away.
The witch whispers her sweet temptations.
You've put in a fine effort. There's no shame at all in throwing in the towel.
Her voice is soft, gentle, pleasant, saccharine.
Concede defeat.
If I do, it'll all go away, the searing pain spreading from the stump of my left arm. The sensation of being perpetually drained of my blood. The miserable solitude of staring at a door that never opens. The laughter I can hear through the window. My miserable wailing and this maddening hatred. I can end it all.
That's right. It will all be over. You have the power to make it stop.
Make it all stop. No, I can't let that happen. No, I have to get her back at my side. I'll do anything to take her back, even if it means I end up 1,000 tiny scraps of meat. I will not give up on her for any reason.
You won't, will you? Oh, such beautiful resolve. Willing to sacrifice yourself to save the girl. Like a hero of legend. Or maybe a fairy tale prince.
No, I am no hero, and I am no prince. I am a human, an ordinary man. I don't have any extraordinary potential. I'm not a courageous leader or a charismatic general. I'm just a regular man, in love with a regular woman, who refuses to lose her. I don't need any other accomplishments, only that. That's all I need, because I'm just a regular man. My one act of resistance. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter how much you cut me up. Nothing changes what I have to do. I have to take her back and set her free of this mansion. Nothing else. And never will I back down on that. Arms or no, as long as I can move, I must push forward. I must make my way to the woman who waited for me for so long. Up, to the top of the tower, forward, ever onward. Dragging my bloody body, paying the pain no mind, I once more arrive at the top of the observation tower. I place my hand on the door, holding myself up with my lacerated right arm, take a moment to catch my breath, then lift my head, gaze into the void, and shout her name. Morgana! I pity you. I truly do. You were a saint shackled with an unfathomable fate, and for that I am enraged. As I felt your pain, as I watched your life, I too felt a burning hatred for those 3 men.
If you truly feel that way, then why can't you just stay here with me? We're all dead anyway. We've reached our ends. Do you honestly think there's anything more for us? There isn't. The end is the end. So what do you say? The three of us. Me, you, and Giselle. Torture the three of them and everyone they cared about. Make them suffer here for all eternity in this house. And that way, you and Giselle can be together forever too.
That's not an option.
Why not?
Because hatred only brings you pain.
Oh, that's brilliant. You spouting stupid platitudes at me? I can't believe my ears. Save your nonsense moralizing about how hatred does you no good. I won't hear it. I'm doing just fine for myself, my dear. In fact, I have never been better. I feel wonderful. Did you think that would be enough to persuade me? Really? Oh, how disappointing. And here I thought you understood me.
Morgana,
why don't you say what you really think? Go right on ahead. Hate them as much as you want. But keep me and Giselle out of it. Why didn't you just say that?
I do feel bad, truthfully. For all the time we spent together, never once did I ask about your life. I was so focused on myself. And in the end, I pushed you away.
That you did? You wanted to be with Giselle, so you pushed me out.
I wish I had asked you sooner.
It wouldn't have changed anything, though. One puny man knowing what I went through would hardly be enough to erase the loathing I bear. It would have turned out the same regardless. There was nothing you could have done for me. There is nothing.
Still, I would like to apologize. Had I known what you carried in your heart, perhaps I could have chosen my words better. Instead of rejecting you, I could have chosen some other response. I cannot remain in this house, nor can I allow her to stay either. So I would like to apologize for both my past actions and my present.
Well, in that case, open the door, Michael.
I take another moment to catch my breath, and then I gather my strength into the hand on the door. Blood seeps from my fingertips, slowly trickling down the rough surface. It reminds me of my death. I'm coming for you. I push open the door, praying that it will be the last, that beyond it lies light for Giselle, and if possible, then it might cast a bit of light on Morgana's heart as well. What? However, why am I in my bedroom? What I find behind the door is the last thing I expect. Huh? As she appears from the shadows of my chambers, I can't conceal my surprise. Giselle? Is this another illusion, Morgana? No, it's not. I am the real me. Thank you for coming all the way here for me. She's thanking me. So why isn't she smiling?
That was very kind and courageous of you, Michael. I'm deeply moved you would have such compassion, not only for her, but for someone like me. But do you know what else you are? You're a worm.
What is it this time, Morgana?
What do you say we pull back the curtain, my dear?
What curtain?
There's one detail that hasn't come to light yet. This isn't your first return to the mansion, is it? You've been back numerous times, each time not remembering her, and each time hurting her even more.
What are you talking about?
What am I talking about? Oh, you know good and well, my dear. Or do you honestly believe that all the other pieces were in their rightful places, and you alone were some exception? I never... Tell me, how was it? Living in so many different eras, not knowing who you were, and playing with all the different men.
No, you're out of your mind. You make it sound like I was...
Not like, my dear. You are the white-haired girl.
Enough! How could anyone possibly confuse me with her?
To tell you the truth, I couldn't see you as anyone else. Your white hair, red eyes, porcelain skin, and your name. Tell me, what about you isn't the same?
We're not the same person. I
saw the letter.
What?
The one you had hidden.
No.
And you didn't think that was worth mentioning?
No, Giselle, I didn't mean...
You're exactly right, my dear Giselle. He deceived you. He kept a very important secret from you. Despite showing up before you multiple times, he cast you aside again and again.
No, that wasn't me. It wasn't. It all makes sense now. Nothing you ever did was for me. Giselle, I...
Go on, Giselle. Tell him exactly how you feel.
Michael, don't. Please don't. Don't say it. Not that, please, I'm begging you. Stop, please, don't, Giselle. Not actually. Please. Don't say it! A man at all, are you? You're disgusting.
You're the only one it could have been, my dear. The only one who could have been the white-haired girl.
The next moment, my whole world comes tumbling down. I could have borne anything. Losing my arm, having my face torn off, any amount of pain, I could have handled it. For you, I could have done it. But this, hearing those words coming from your mouth, being rejected by you, that I cannot. Those words, they bury me alive, and you're the one person I never wanted to hear them from.